You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast. The OPP is brought to you by Natural Stacks, makers of 100% natural and open source supplements designed to help you live optimal. For more information on how to build optimal mental and physical performance into your life, go to naturalstacks.com.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Optimal Performance Podcast. Thank you for listening. I just want to say that I really appreciate every time that you listen to this podcast. And even though we may have never met before, this content is for you. I aim to bring you the coolest, most cutting edge information that will help you live your best possible life. On today's episode, we have Mike Ricker, who is the co-founder and the sales and marketing director for a CO2 extracted cannabis oil company, as in like you smoke it out of a vape pen, called Wam Oil. And we go a lot of different places in the cannabis world. You're probably going to want to start at about 19 minutes in. It takes us a minute to get going. If you like the natural progression of our conversation and you're in it to win it, start it from the get-go. But if you want to cut right to the details, you can skip to minute 19, where we dig into all the ins and outs of the cannabis industry, uses. He explains to me at one point in our conversation about a partner of his who has survived cancer 7 times, endometrial cancer, and also shrinking brain tumors with cannabis. He's got to be careful about talking about medical claims about cannabis. I totally understand, but I think it's obvious. I think everyone knows that cannabis is a major, major tool for recovery, for anti-inflammation, and sooner or later, you or someone that you know is going to have something where cannabis will help, whether it's your niece or nephew who's having seizures and needs cannabis oil. Maybe it's your grandmother, like mine, who suffers from just debilitating arthritis, where a topical ointment really helps. There's a reason. There's a reason why we respond so well to cannabis, and that's because of our own internal cannabinoid system. We dig into that as well. We talk about testing and the highest possible quality on CO2 extracted oil. It's a really fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate you listening. I also wanted to mention that for today's episode, we're going to do a special offer. The guys from Natural Stacks, the guys like Ben and Roy, the co-founders, have also just recently purchased a soap company called Chiefs, and they are offering a 20% off discount for anybody. I'll make that 25% discount. Just go to Chiefs for Men and buy the face wash that I've been using, which I absolutely love, and use the code OPTIMAL for 25% off your first online purchase. As always, follow me on Instagram at Coach Sean McCormick, and I'm always into your feedback. I really want to hear what you think about these episodes. Send me an email, Sean, SEAN, @naturalstacks.com. And also, I'm working on something else that I'm really excited to roll out. Some of you may already know that I am a life coach and a performance coach, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to step into my world a little bit. If you're interested, send me your phone number, and I will send you a text message every single morning with something that is useful in your life to get you started off in the right way. You may or may not know that I am a life coach, a life mission coach, a performance coach, and a spiritual advisor for lots of different people. I work with individuals and organizations to help them up-level in various ways. And I want to give you guys the opportunity also. If you want biohacking techniques, spiritual insights, and life coaching mental frameworks that will help you get just starting your day on the right note, send me your number. And I will send you just a quick meme, something very simple, very quick, every single morning to get your day started on the right path. Real simple, no strings attached. Just send me an email with your name and your phone number, and I'll just shoot you something cool every single morning. I'm here for you. I want to help you guys grow. I want to help you guys live your absolute best possible lives, and I'm qualified to do so. So please put your trust in me. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Ricker.
You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast, and I'm your host, Sean McCormick. It's the OPP. I'm a performance coach, a wellness entrepreneur, a blogger, a speaker, a biohacker, and it's my privilege to bring to you the leading experts in the field of performance. So let's dig right in. And we are here with Michael Ricker, who is the Sales and Marketing Director and also partner at Wam Oil. Michael Ricker, welcome to the Optimal Performance Podcast.
Hi, Guy. What's going on?
It's really good to have you, man. We can spare everybody the how we know each other from the past.
Why? That's a great story.
Okay, well maybe we'll weave it in a little bit later, but I
gave you the name Shawnee Mac.
It's true. You've given lots of nicknames, haven't you?
Yes, I have. That's my forte. Everybody gets a stage name.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I like to start with the same question, the first question for everybody, which is, what have you put into your body today?
An acai bowl.
Period.
That's it, man. Oh, no. So the first thing that I start with every day is this little tea that I brew. First thing I do is I go straight to the stove and I boil water. And instead of having coffee, I take the boiled water and then I inject into it. Let's see. I do a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a half of an organic lemon, 2 shakes of turmeric, and 3 shakes of cayenne. And it gets my metabolism going and it wakes me up and it just makes me feel good. And then about 30 minutes later, I will have a breakfast, which is 99 out of 100 days an acai bowl.
What about vitamins?
I do take vitamins, yeah.
Run us through all of it.
And water too, by the way.
No doubt.
Yeah, so the vitamins, so I'm vegetarian. I take it back. I am a pescatarian. I do eat seafood. So I'll probably eat fish twice a week, some sort of seafood, sometimes once a week. Sometimes I'll splurge. I just spent 10 days in Hawaii and I ate ahi probably every day. Favorite food, and it's the best in the world over there, right? So, I feel the need to supplement my diet with vitamins. So, gosh, I take a multi, 3 of them. I can't remember the name of it. It's, so regimented for me. I just, pop them in my hand and throw them in my mouth, and I can't even remember what the name is. B12. Let's see what else. I do vitamin D. And a couple others. I'll think of them as we go.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to send you some of our vitamin D3 with coconut oil. It's killer stuff.
Cool.
So there's lots I want to get to. You are.
Do you want to tell everybody who where we met?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you in the Seattle market, you already know Ricker. And for those of you who are not in the Seattle market, you may not know Ricker, although you might, because the guy's kind of everywhere.
No, I was in like 10 markets.
Right. Yeah. We're our biggest listenership is along the West Coast, but I know that you've bopped around. Ricker, allow me to introduce you. Ricker is Mike Ricker is a DJ, a radio DJ who is a absolute legend in Seattle. And back before it was okay to be a pothead, to be a cannabis enthusiast.
Yeah, pothead. I don't know. That's kind of a dirty term in this day and age, man. In this industry, especially. And I can elaborate on that, but stoners are the biggest problem with cannabis, right?
Yeah. I think back then it would have been, because it was it was demonized. Back when you were hosting 420 gatherings at whose grave here in Seattle?
Jimi Hendrix Memorial.
And
I also hosted a segment every day called High Noon.
Right.
Where people call up and take big bong hits. What's up, Rick? Rickert. What's going on, you Gantonormous Gangsterlicious Championshipism? Just toking on some purple kush. Well, what are you hitting it out of the one-eyed, one-horn flying purple people eater there, Gangsterlicious Brosicle? Yeah, Rickert. Well, let's hear what that sounds like, you Gantonormous Championship-tastic. Happy high noon, Rickert. There you go, brother.
Yeah. And then you went legit.
I guess.
Yeah. Wam Oil, for everyone listening, Wam Oil is by far my favorite oil. My very favorite CO2 extracted oil, and I've tried a whole bunch of them, and the quality speaks for itself. And I know how I use it, but I'd like to get some more insights as to how you market it and some stories about how people use it, because for the people listening now who are, type A, successful, very active, very, very health conscious, open to new and innovative biohacking techniques and supplements and so forth. I'd like to ask sort of a broad question about the uses of Wam Oil. How do you, based on what you know, how do people use it?
There are a number of ways that you can utilize the benefits of cannabis, and I will touch on that in just a moment. But we didn't answer the question of how we met, brother. Shawnee Mack was a salesperson at the radio station, and I was an on-air personality, and we became buddies. And then I moved away for another gig and didn't see you for, like 6 years, 5-6 years. And we ran into each other at a Seahawks game because I moved back to Seattle to become a partner and the sales and marketing director of Wam Oil. My buddy, here's how the story goes, okay? So I was on the air back in 2004, 2005. And, the Seahawks are a big deal in Seattle, and every NFL market, I'm sure there's a big deal that for their local NFL team. And this guy would call my show and say, "Hey, Ricker, it's Cowboy." "Oh, Cowboy. Cowboy's a big Cowboys fan. He's a huge Tony Romo fan. And the Cowboys are coming to town this weekend, and they're going to be taking on the Seattle Seahawks at the Clink. And Tony Romo's going to fumble the ball, and the Cowboys are going to get their asses handed to them. They're going to be whimpering all the way back home with their Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders." And we would talk football, and then about a year or two later, I'm in a gym working out. This guy comes up and goes, he hears me speaking. He goes, "Are you Ricker?" "Yeah." He says, "I'm Cowboy." "Oh, wow. What do you know, bro? What's up, man?" And he ended up being a cool guy who golfs and snowboards and stuff. So we ended up hanging out and becoming friends. Then in 2010, I was at his home one day, and he has an apartment or condo in the Rainier Lofts. Now, anybody who lives in Seattle knows what the Rainier Lofts are, right? It's the old Rainier Brewery, right? That no longer produces beer, but now they've renovated the building into luxury lofts and studios, also storage units, recording studios, stuff like that. They've utilized the whole building, and he lives in there. And I was in there, and I saw this little black stuff that he had in some ramekins. And I said, "Dude, what is this?" Because it looks like hash. And I love hash. Look, dude, back when I was growing up, and, I'm 50, right? So you'd get hash once a year. And there'd be a nice little ball of it, maybe a quarter size in diameter. And you'd be like to your buddies, "Hey, man, guess what I got?" "What's that?" "I've got hash." "You've got hash?" And it was exquisite, right? And you wanted it to last as long as possible, but you also wanted to share it with as many people as possible because you had hash. And then that thing would whittle down to a little booger until it was gone, and then you'd cry and you wouldn't see it again for a year,
Yeah.
So I'm like, "What do you got here, Brandon?" "Cowboy." And he says, "Oh, just some extractions that I've been playing with." So I'm like, "Well, let me take some." "Yeah, go ahead." So I loved it. It was great. And about that time, he started Wam Oil, 2010, one of the first companies in the state of Washington to do extractions. And actually, we are Washington's original. We're the first company in the state of Washington to introduce the vape cartridge to the state, and also the first company to do CO2 extractions. So fast forward to 2016, right? And I had been out of radio for about 4 or 5 years. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, right? But radio had kind of come and gone because I was a shock jock, and the whole industry had changed. The internet, digital aspect of entertainment had been a big factor in that. And for my birthday, I decided I wanted to go to Machu Picchu, for a really special, event. And I'm in Machu Picchu. To make a long story short, I meet this guy, and he's this kind of shaman guy, and he says, "You have to go into the jungle and do ayahuasca while you're here. It's meant to happen." And I'm like, "Huh? Ayahuasca? Who?" And by the way, he had a joint in Machu Picchu, and I had just flown from the U.S. And trust me, I wasn't bringing anything through customs. And I'm like, "You got a joint?" So we found a little secret area, and we took a puff each, man. And all of a sudden, I'm at Machu Picchu, and I'm stoned, and I'm like, "My God, this is beautiful." And it had been raining all morning, and the sky was clearing. It was meant to happen. And I started thinking after, and I was like, I had a buddy of mine with me, and I said, "Man, I feel like I'm being called to this." We were supposed to go surf on the coast for the next week. And I said, "You know what, dude, I think I need to go to the jungle, man." And so we catch the next flight. We go into the jungle, make a short story long. We meet this guy. He takes us in there. We do ayahuasca, and it's amazing. And that's a whole nother podcast. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But I come out, and my buddy's puking and pooping and stuff, and I'm like, and I'm good. Hadn't worked in a while. I've been working on myself, decompressing from the ego of being a radio personality for 20 years. And I come out, and I think, well, he says, "I know how I'm going to fix my life. Oh, my relationship." And he gets all these answers. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have all the answers, but, I'm cool with myself. I wasn't puking and pooping, right? And they say that's purging the evil spirits and the negativity from your body. And I wasn't feeling very negative. So I had a butterflies and rainbows experience. It was amazing. But the thing I left with was, I'm really interested. I don't know why, but I'm really interested in this plant-based medicine.
Yes.
And it's a psychedelic. And mind you, I was done with psychedelics, right? And I was very nervous about doing it, but I talked myself into it. And because, I don't need to visit those cobwebs up in the attic anymore. I've been there, done that. I'm good. But I did it anyways. And the word that struck me was the word medicine. And I thought, down here they call it medicine, and they've been using it as medicine for 1,000+ years. And so that struck a chord with me. So I came back, and I was living in San Diego at the time on the beach. And I was just like being a surf bum, trying to figure out, like I said, what I wanted to do with my life. And 2 months later, I get a call from Brandon, Cowboy, says, "Hey, listen, we lost our medical license, or it's becoming defunct because the medical market is being outlawed by the state of Washington, and they're instituting the recreational market for everyone now. So we have to transition into that market. And you, as a former radio personality and a promoter of cannabis on your show for the right reasons and wrong reasons, whatever, you would be perfect for this company. Why don't you come and run my sales department?" And I said, I'm not going to come run your sales department only. I want to come run the company as well. And I want to be a partner. So let's cut a deal so that I can work with this company with you, not for you. And he says, "How can I refuse?" Because it occurred to me at that moment that this was my destiny. Why? Because cannabis is plant-based medicine.
Yes.
Right? So the journey brought me to this point, and how could I deny the universe? I mean, it sent all the messages I needed right there. So it's been 2 years now, and we're killing it. It took us about 8 months to transition into the recreational market. We finally launched our products, and then about 7 months later, we won the industry award for best concentrate company. And there's probably 250 to 300 concentrate companies. We not just got nominated, we actually won the award. And I'm not saying we're the best at anything. There is no best. It's like art, right?
Right.
But the industry recognized the struggle that Wam Oil had gone through, transitioning into the rec market from the medical market. And we had such a strong legacy dating back to 2011 when things really started to roll, that the industry voted emotionally, right, with their heart. And that's how we won that award. And it was a seminal moment for us. So the question you had was CO2 oil, how can it be used beneficially? And I want to say that that CO2 is just one method of extraction for cannabis into a concentrate. There are many other methods. You can use butane, you can use propane, you can also use a non-solvent way of going about it, like a live rosin. It's there. Everybody has their opinion of which is the most effective. RSO is very effective. If you look that up, it's Rick Simpson oil. I actually used Rick Simpson oil, which is basically the entire plant made into an oil, the stalk, the roots, everything. And many people believe that it has highly, highly medical benefits. And I agree. And I can touch on where the proof is with our particular company. But first I'll say that I had a piece of skin cancer on my face, right? Just a little basal cell, right? I grew up surfing in the sun in Florida. And so I've had those removed from my body 3 times already. And this one appeared on my face about a year ago. And I went to a dermatologist and she froze it off. And I had this dime-sized red circle on my face. It was faint, but it was annoying for about 6 to 8 months. And then it started to fade. And I went to New Zealand with my girlfriend and got some sun, came back, and lo and behold, it reappeared. And I had been at this event, and this guy had given me a syringe of RSO. So I thought, you know what? At this point, I'm going to have to get cut into, but I'm going to try this alternative measure first. And so I took the RSO and I dabbed a little bit on the face in the morning once, and then at night at once. Now, mind you, I did smell like cannabis a little bit, and it's sticky. But within 6 days, that basal cell had shriveled up into a little white scab that I just flicked off of my face. And this was about 6 months ago, and it has not returned yet.
Wow.
True story. And there are many stories that validate RSO on a number of different levels that you can find all over the place. Now, another story is this. My partner, Brandon's partner, woman, wife, girlfriend, never married, but been together 19 years. She is a 7-time cancer survivor. She survived endometrial cancer 6 times, and then about a year and a half ago was diagnosed with a brain tumor. All right. Now, she has notoriously in the Washington cannabis industry, and she's a member of the Women of Weed, which is a big organization of powerful women in the cannabis business in the state of Washington, also a member of the Cannabis Alliance and very vocal in the cannabis community. She's Mexican. She was raised by her grandmother, who used cannabis as medicine when she was growing up. So Gianna, my partner, has an affinity to cannabis since she was a little girl as medicine. And now she has a relationship with it. And we have a strain called Lemon Remedy, which is a high CBD, low THC strain that has, in my opinion, strong health and wellness benefits. So her regimen, when she contracted endometriosis or endometrial cancer, has been to use a 0.5 gram of Lemon Remedy orally in the morning and a 0.5 gram of RSO at night. And for her, it has shrunk tumors.
Wow.
And she's survived it now with the brain tumor actually being cleared for remission. She has survived cancer 7 times by using cannabis.
That's amazing.
So,
how does she take it orally? Does she take is it like a little hash, explain it to me.
She does a 0.5 gram. So she fills capsules with it and then just takes the capsule.
With the CO2 extracted oil?
Inside of it.
Inside of it. Got it.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty strong. I mean, you can't deny that the power and the efficacy of it.
No, and she's, mind you, that's her methodology, right? There are, you can also obviously smoke cannabis, and people get a great deal of health and wellness benefits from that. You can vaporize it, and that's what we specialize in, is producing, vaporized or vape products that are also, really healthy, in my opinion. And, we've got high THC products as well that will get you ripped. Now, what we do with, and the benefit of CO2 is that is considered by most to be the cleanest way to extract cannabis into a concentrate. What we do is create full spectrum oil. So in the process, we retain as much of the indigenous cannabinoids as possible because there's science that is evolving every day and showing us that the cannabinoids in the cannabis plant have medical benefits for the human brain and body. We have an endocannabinoid system. The cannabis plant is a phytocannabinoid system, and the two work synergistically with each other. And that's why human beings love cannabis so much, and why, in my opinion, it's so good for us. What happens is we take it into our body, and the endocannabinoid or the phytocannabinoids attach to our endocannabinoid receptors, which strengthens your immune system. Allegedly, it says it on Wikipedia. And I want to state that I'm not I don't have the luxury of mentioning any medical benefits of cannabis, because it's against the law in the state of Washington to do so, because it's a strictly 502 recreational market. But for health and wellness, it has been known to be very effective and boost your immune system. Now, there are approximately 113 major cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. THC is one of them, and people believe that THC has a great bounty of health and wellness benefit for the human brain and body. But there's also another 112 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. And science is showing us that those individual cannabinoids, and CBD is one of them. There's also CBG, CBN, CBC, and a host of others, obviously. That they also have health and wellness benefits for the human brain and body. It has been shown that CBG, for instance, is really good for Crohn's and colitis. It's also a mood enhancement. It's called cannabigerol. CBD is an anti-inflammatory. It's also an analgesic, as well as a host of other benefits that people have found individually for it to be, good for their bodies. So, this plant, man, that's been around forever and unrecognized really by the government, is potentially a miracle cure-all.
Yeah, well,
and I shouldn't say. Let me restate that: not a cure-all, but for some, ailments.
And we don't really know. We don't really know how far it can go, and that's not even talking about the cannabis and the hemp plant, which we don't really need to get into the distinction between the two necessarily. But the industrial uses for building materials, textiles, paper alternatives, like, it is a master plant. It is a game changer, and the deck is stacked against us and against this progressive material and medicine. But the tide has shifted, and it seems like it changes every single day.
It's changing rapidly. The industry, we live this industry in dog years. It's very fast. There's a lot of money coming in. There's a lot of hope. And I'd like to clarify, or at least give you an objective of something, an observation, that what's probably going to happen is the cannabis plant will end up being used strictly for health and wellness, and the hemp plant will be grown strictly for industrial use. because it takes a lot of hemp to produce, a fair amount of CBD and other cannabinoids. And in the cannabis plant, it's far more prevalent. So you have to grow less cannabis to get health and wellness products. And, and obviously the hemp plant has been known to be used for a lot of different industrial things.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little piece of history. In the 1920s, there was a lobby to the government. William Randolph Hearst was a major component of those lobbyists, really, really pushing to get hemp eliminated so that they could institute timber as a major crop for industrial use. And they won. And they won by basically coupling hemp with cannabis, when hemp has absolutely no psychoactive effect on the brain whatsoever. Why would you demonize hemp? Because they saw a great deal of money to be made by using their timber, because Hearst, of course, owned a lot of property and had a lot of trees, and he had a publishing empire. And instead of hemp being that major component for, creating his newspapers, he could institute timber, and they obviously were successful because they made hemp illegal. And many people believe that it was through propaganda that cannabis was going to make you crazy, right? You've seen all that negative propaganda about it, reefer madness and such. And it was the black jazz musician's drug that was going to make people go rape white girls. And so everybody said, oh, we can't have that, right? The conservative right, or whoever it was. And so it was made illegal. Now, this is a really interesting point. The human body has had cannabinoids in its system since the Paleolithic period. Why is that? Because humans have always ate the animals that ate the wild hemp, right? So the animals had a high diet of hemp, which translated to our bodies as well. Now, CBD, which is found in hemp, is, again, a natural anti-inflammatory, allegedly. So suddenly people started developing these diseases of inflammation, right? That didn't necessarily exist before. So then in the 50s, the pill was, initiated. Just take this cocktail of pills and that'll mask the symptoms. But then, of course, it throws your balance off and you've got other issues because your balance is off. And then you've got to take more pills to rectify that situation, right? So for the past almost 100 years, because cannabis has been illegal and hemp has been illegal, we've been suffering from some major ailments that we probably shouldn't be suffering from. So yes, the tide is turning. And, in the 60s, cannabis made sort of a resurgence, the hippie movement and such, peace, love. And then, one example of how it was quashed again by the powers that be was, the Manson murders happened. Oh, well, if you use cannabis, you're going to go cut babies out of pregnant women's stomachs. And like Charles Manson did. And, weed, pot, dope is bad. So again, the movement was quashed. Well, now in the, 2010s, obviously it started in about 2010. It actually started in San Francisco in the 90s for AIDS patients. And sort of, it was, I think it was Dianne Feinstein, who's, obviously a senator now, was the mayor of San Francisco. And I believe it was her that made a compassion law for people that were diagnosed with, who were dying from AIDS, and that they could use cannabis for their pain relief, right? And I could be wrong, but I think that's where it all started. This whole global cannabis movement that's still in its infancy, but you will see that it is going to become, big on every scale of every aspect of life. Sean, you're going to see cookie companies putting CBDs and CBGs in their food or whatever, Kraft and Nabisco, big, tobacco, big pharmaceuticals, of course, are going to be in it. It's going to be everywhere. You'll be putting CBD drops in your smoothies in the morning, toothpaste, cosmetics, you name it. cannabis is going to become a major, major, major play in the next decade and beyond. And in my opinion, 2020 is the year of vision. That's the year that we get, an elected president, that we elect a new president. And in my opinion, it's going to be part of the election platform for, whichever Democrat, whichever Republican get nominated, and they're going to say they're going to want to take credit for legalizing cannabis, and I think that that's going to be Trump's one of his running platforms. Is he's going to say, I'm going to legalize cannabis, and you know what? Don't be surprised if he loses, if he does legalize it before he's out of office. Right, in those two months before the new president is sworn in, just to take credit for it. But it'll probably be, in my personal opinion, until about 2021 when it starts to become federally legal. Now, anything could happen, and I could be totally wrong, but that's my assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I read somewhere that the former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, has a bunch of money in cannabis because he's old school, good old boy, tobacco ties and families and investments and so forth. And I think that, based on what I've read too, because I have a fascination with it and I've seen it help so many people and it's helped me in so many different ways. I think you're right. I think, like written in the Cannabis Manifesto, you can do like a little tincture before going into a movie, or wine pairings. It's going to be ubiquitous. I think it's just a matter of time because people aren't dumb and they know what will help them and give them a higher quality of life, and cannabis does that.
I think so. It's done so for me. And here's the thing: when we're not working with the old bud that you used to get, back in the 90s and 80s, right? Back in the day, you would have whatever strain was going around. These millennials these days, brother, they don't know what the term dry means, right? There'd be, like 2 weeks, bro, it's dry. There's no weed anywhere, you're scraping your bowl, right? And then, a shipment would come into town and your guy would have a certain strain, and it would be the same strain that the guy across town had. And, well, what is it? Oh, it's the BC bud or whatever, right? We didn't know if it was an indica or a sativa or how much CBD it had, or right. You just got what you had. It either made you sleepy or awake or whatever. And if one of those strains that you got was really, really hit a chord, you'd be like, my God, that's the best weed I've ever had, man. What is it? Because it worked for your constitution. And everybody's different. Some people will prefer an indica. Some people prefer a sativa, Some people an indica gives them energy. Some people a sativa makes them sleepy. You never know. What it really boils down to is the strain itself. And if you find a good strain that you like, you stick with it, right? But now with science, obviously, and technology, cannabis has come a long ways. Now you can actually extract certain the terpenes and the cannabinoids, and the flavonoids, and really, concentrate high levels of those cannabinoids and terpenes to where you've got a product that is great for health and wellness that pinpoints an acute reaction in the human brain and body. So now you get a concentrate, like, particular strain of Wam Oil that's got really high CBC or CBG, and you know what it's going to do to you, right? So you can tailor your buzz to almost exactly what it is that you like. Where before you just got whatever was in town, So It's really exciting. And it's still, we're just scratching the surface, man.
There's a company that I'm going to have on the podcast at some point here in the future called Green Genomics, and they do a DNA test that identifies specific genetic variants responsible for your unique biochemical makeup, and then they give you a sort of a suggestion of the different strains that might work best with your DNA.
Dude.
Right?
Fantastic.
Right? To be able to say, like, okay, the Gorilla Glue strain doesn't work well for me, but Girl Scout cookies does. The delivery method that's best for me is CO2 extracted oil versus a tincture. But this is where medicine should be going. And for the people listening right now who are tinkerers and biohackers and staying on top of their baselines and measuring their heart rate variability, to know that you could have a powerful medicine that's custom tailored to you, that's made cleanly, and in a delivery method that's not going to stink you up or turn your eyeballs bright red. Then you can cater to the different aspects that they know work best for you. It's super exciting, man. I can't tell you how stoked I am for it.
As it becomes more socially acceptable, the entire world's going to be excited because people are tired of being sick and tired, brother.
Yeah.
And what we've got to do, what's happening is we've got to get rid of the stigma that has been propagandized to us for the past 100 years. Because if you speak to just about anybody over the age of 60, they're embarrassed to talk about cannabis, right?
They really are.
Yeah, you bring it up at Thanksgiving dinner and people are like, oh, they get all shaken up about it. You may as well be talking about herpes or something, It's just like, you just don't talk. It's not dinner talk, right? But, with millennials and Gen Xers, you can talk openly about cannabis because you know what? Grandma and grandpa use it and they're fine. And even mom and dad might be using it. And maybe grandma and grandpa didn't use it, but they're starting to use it now. In fact, my mother uses a hand cream. She doesn't want to get high, but it really works well for her arthritis. And the Gen Xers have, they've seen it around, right? I'm a Gen Xer. I've seen it around for my entire life, and I've never seen any domestic violence. I've never seen any traffic accidents. I've never seen any issues other than dudes wanting to play video games a little longer than usual. But it's if you measure it against a lot of other drugs, including alcohol, it really is far better for you. And it brings you happiness, right? And there's no hangover.
Yeah. So I have questions about the product specifically because I wonder what the process is of choosing. You can't make every strain. You can't invest the R&D. There's just too many. So how do you guys go about picking the strains that you use for your retail products?
Well, that's a good question. Firstly, there are strains that are just good sellers, right? Green crack. And mind you, I hate some of the names, but it is what it is. It's a really good strain that sells well. Also, Jack Herrera. Jack Herrera was a guy who, he developed this certain particular strain that was very effective for him, and he championed it, and that became a well-known strain. So those strains we we'll get because we know that they're going to be good for business. And then there are other strains that maybe don't sell as much, but have a high CBD ratio, and they are, very beneficial for us as individuals, and also some patients that maybe came from the medical market that have been using that strain for a while. And then we like to play around with new strains as well. And we here at our facility are developing new strains all the time with, different genetics and, hybridizing strains and seeing what we can get, seeing if we can get the best, strongest, highest cannabinoid producing strains. So, you're never sitting rusting. You're always looking for new innovative ways to further the company. And just about every farm in that same class is doing the same thing, right? There's a really big company called Fat Panda here in the state of Washington, and they're advancing into other states as well. But they've got a really impressive research and development department where they're constantly testing out new genetics, and you destroy the ones that don't do as well. And it's really a survival of the fittest game. The plants that do the best end up becoming their star strains that they feature to shops. So there's constant development of trying to find those perfect strains and the strongest strains. So it's just like any other agriculture, I guess, or farm culture. You're trying to get the most out of what you have, and having the best strains, obviously, in this industry helps you succeed.
Right. So what may be the most popular may not be your favorite. Maybe you don't love Matanuska Thunderfuck, but you really love Harlequin Tsunami. Who knows?
There you go, brother. Those are you must have looked at our website, because those are two strains that we actually had
exactly
in the past. The
right.
Harley Sue was one of my favorites, and the MTF was it was good. It's an offspring of Alaskan Thunderfuck. Matanuska's a valley in Alaska, so they're sort of cousins. It's a good sativa. Harlequin Tsunami is a really good CBD. But yes, some strains will. It's amazing. We got a strain from a farm that offered us a Blue Jack. Two strains that are very popular: Blue Dream and Jack Herrera. And I thought, oh, this is a winner, man. We'll take 20 pounds of it. We'll make it into oil and see how it does. And I swear it got me so high that I could barely see straight. I was like, man, this is a really strong, high THC cannabis product. And so we sold it, and I swear it just sat on the shelf and collected dust in the shops that we sold it to.
Interesting.
And I was like, geez, I'm sorry. We'll buy it back. Huh. So you never know what the public is going to gravitate towards. It's kind of a hit and miss, but there are certain strains that obviously do well. But we're always looking for, that next prized possession that we can, call a true Wam Oil strain.
It's fascinating because like you mentioned, society is opening up to the culture and opening up to, similarly to like fine wine.
Very similar to
right?
wine.
They understand it's got different terpenes and flavors and effects and
tannins and terpenes, brother.
Right. Right.
And while I'm on that, while I mentioned that, I'm writing for a magazine called Northwest Leaf. They're in 3 states presently: Alaska Leaf, also Oregon Leaf. They've just signed on Maryland and DC Leaf, and Michigan is next. So they're expanding, and I'm going to be writing a column for them, a cannabis column called Stony Baloney, which will be launching the first week of January coming up. And I'm also the host of their podcast called Leaf Life with the publisher of the magazine, Wes Abney. Now, Wes has been in the medical market for a long time, and he puts these events together called Tannins and Terpenes, where you go to the event and they serve you food and drinks, and they're all flavored with terpenes from particular strains of cannabis. Now, for those of you that don't know what a terpene is, that's a component of the cannabis plant that gives it its smell and aroma. Okay, so terpenes exist in all forms of vegetation in the world, vegetables and fruits. If you take a mango and you say, well, that really tastes like a mango, okay? And then you smoke some cannabis, like a mango haze, right? And it's like, yeah, I taste mango in there. The reason is because the plant and the fruit both share the same terpene that is prevalent in certain fruits and vegetables in the natural fauna of the world. So that same terpene will be found in the flower of that cannabis plant, which is amazing, why you'll get a strawberry cough, right? It tastes a little bit like strawberry because they share the same terpene.
That is the clearest explanation of a terpene that I've heard in a long time.
There you go.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
As people begin to understand.
And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Right.
This is very important. Terpenes also augment the THC. They accentuate your buzz, so to speak, right? So if you have really high terpenes, then you're probably going to have a much better experience with that cannabis strain. And when you do extractions, which is what we do, you can get high levels of terpenes, right? So you've got something with like 12% terpenes and, 62% THC and some CBD and other CBC in there and stuff. Those terpenes will really, it's why when you smoke a certain strain, you'll be like, my God, that's fantastic. Why do I feel so great? Is because it's high in terpenes. Those terpenes are sort of elevating the other cannabinoids in the plant.
Right. And that's sort of similar to, you need a little bit of THC. What's the effect, synergy or complementary effect that when you're using a CBD product, that it should have it's best to have a little bit of THC in it because they work together and they like each other and they're more effective.
That's right. The THC actually carries the CBD to the receptors. So it's our opinion at Wam Oil that you need about at least 3% THC in a CBD strain for it to be truly effective. Yeah. So if you see these, a lot of people claim that hemp CBD with a trace amount of THC, and I mean like 0.03%, is effective for them. There are also a lot of people that believe that that's snake oil. Now, I can't really comment on either because, I'm not a scientist. And also, I don't take CBD products derived from hemp. I only take cannabis derived CBD. One thing we know is that, well, at least one thing we believe in our opinion, that cannabis derived CBD is far more effective than hemp derived CBD. And be cautious if you're out there buying the next trendy CBD, say CBD water, CBD whatever, because a lot of it is CBD that's been shipped from China.
Yeah.
And there's no regulation on it. You don't know if and it's a powder usually, and you don't know what that powder is. You don't know if there really is CBD in that. You don't know if it came from hemp. It definitely didn't come from cannabis because cannabis is illegal in China. So, just buyer beware. If you really want positive effects from CBD, go with a cannabis derived CBD and make sure there's some THC in it. Now, a low level of THC really won't get you stoned. Maybe a tiny, tiny little shred, and you'll probably actually love it because a little tiny bit of CBD has been known for some people to be sort of an anti-anxiety property. And anxiety is what most people suffer from when they use THC because it is a psychotropic cannabinoid and it does, it makes some people feel paranoid.
Yeah. What to talk about, to take it to the next level, pesticides and organic labels and not organic, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's, really, really a sticking point for us here at Wam Oil. We are really stringent about our testing and the products that we put on the market. We do pesticide testing on the finished product, on the oil. And we're one of the only companies in the state of Washington. In fact, from what I've seen, and I'm everywhere in this industry in the state of Washington, we're the only ones that actually put it on our label. Now, what's the difference between that and a company that has pesticide free on their label? I can tell you this. Okay, I'm going to start a new story. There's a very prominent shop in the state of Washington called Uncle Ike's. It's owned by a gentleman named Ian Eisenberg. Ian has initiated a new policy with his 3 stores where they will pull products off the shelf randomly. I think it's once a week. It's called Ike's OK. And they will send it for a third-party testing, for pesticide testing. And just recently, last week, something happened that has sent shockwaves through the industry. They did a testing on a company called Ionic. Ionic makes vape cartridges. They produce a CO2 or a hash oil product. Ionic came back as having failed for myclobutanol, which, to my knowledge, converts to cyanide when it's heated.
Oy.
Okay. There's another propylene glycol. It's used prevalently in vape card like e-cigs and such, and it's used as cut for a lot of oil companies. It's not pure oil. They'll cut it with propylene glycol. It's just a business practice for a lot of companies that don't care about people's health. They just care about making money. And there's a lot of them out there, trust me. When you heat PG, propylene glycol, I have seen on the internet that some science shows that it converts to formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is what they embalm dead bodies with. When you combust something, it's different than eating a strawberry with pesticides on it. When you heat it, it changes molecular form, and it can be very toxic, and it can be a high neurotoxin, amongst many other things that we don't know that it does to you, right? And there's very little regulation in the cannabis industry. So when you're buying a product, be really conscious of how they grew it and what's in it. And here's the thing, though, all right? So this company, Ionic, and I don't mean to talk negatively about Ionic, I'm just stating the facts. This company puts on the back of their package pesticide free, right? How do we know it's pesticide free? I mean, that's a big claim to make. And in my personal opinion, it's a false claim because you cannot prove that anything is pesticide free. What we do at Wam Oil is we send it out for pesticide testing, and then we provide a certificate of pass from the Liquor Cannabis Board, state of Washington, that shows that it passed their regulations for pesticide testing. We don't claim to be pesticide free because there's not a laboratory in the entire world, in the universe, as far as I know, that has the capacity to test for every pesticide that exists in the world, right?
Interesting.
There's like over 2,000 pesticides and over 10,000 harmful compounds, in my personal opinion, that are found in all of those pesticides. So how can you test for all 10,000 of those compounds? You can't. So putting pesticide free on your label is a false claim. Not only that, but anybody can do it because it's not regulated by the state. So Ionic did it. They put pesticide free on their package. Uncle Ike's, Ian Eisenberg, tested that and it came out negative. Failed. So where does that put the consumer? That puts the consumer last, right? And pesticides are a big problem because here's the thing. There are way too many farm licenses or producer licenses and way too few retail licenses. I think they issued over 1,500 producer licenses and only 450 to 500 retail licenses. What that equates to is very little shelf space for the farms. So the farms, a lot of them, to make a margin to survive and stay in business, have to cheat. And as you know from learning from Lance Armstrong, people will cheat to get ahead in life, right? So there's a lot of bad product on the shelf out there, and they'll tell you that they're clean, but they haven't proven it, right? And so careful of what you buy and what you smoke, because when you combust those pesticides, man, they can be really harmful.
And you're sending that out for a third-party test, right?
It's yes, it's a test that's done. There are a number of laboratories that are state certified that do the testing, and it's not required by the state. Although there is talk, and we've been told by the Cannabis Alliance that the Liquor Cannabis Board is going to initiate mandatory testing statewide for the state of Washington. We're one of the only legal states in the country that has not mandated pesticide testing. But even still, there's a lot of work to do. California, I read an article, I think it was Rolling Stone, that where it says that 93% of all the random testing that they did on products came back positive for mycotoxins and pesticides. In the state of Washington, we actually had a full-page media ad running for a couple months that stated there's a guy named Dr. Ethan Russo, who's a prominent person in the cannabis industry, who did some third-party testing, and his results equated in 84.6% of all samples tested came back pesticide testing in the state of Washington. So what's that tell you, man? It's a really dirty market. And the government has a long way to go until they clean it up. And in my opinion, that's part of why legalization, on a countrywide scale, on a national scale, federal scale, has not come to be yet.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think that level of attention to detail, and we do the same thing in Natural Stacks. Every batch of krill oil or magnesium, the MagTech products, all of it is, every batch is tested and the results are posted on the website, so you can actually see what is in the bottle of curcumin turmeric that you bought and how did it, what's in it, so that you can see clearly. And that sort of investment in time and money is going to pay off in the long run, because these guys have been doing it right for this long. And when there's lots of competition, like there is not only in supplements and vitamins, but obviously also in cannabis, that when you can exhibit that you've been doing it and testing it and doing it the right way, like that level of authenticity, I think it pays off, and in smart consumers who are paying attention to what they put in their bodies appreciate that.
Yeah, I like to use the word transparency. We're a transparent company, and we're playing the long play, Sean. To be honest with you, our whole business model is about providing the highest quality product at the fairest price, and by high quality I mean safe for the human brain and body. And that doesn't always equate to sales. Let me tell you what, brother, in this industry, it's every man for himself, and it's a race, right? And we're playing the tortoise while, almost all the other companies are playing the hare. Make as much money as you possibly can now, because who knows how long we're going to have the opportunity to do so. We're about establishing a high quality, highly valued, respectable brand over the long term, because we want to be the Whole Foods of the cannabis industry. And you don't do that overnight necessarily. You have to develop trust with your consumers, because once you do that, and once you establish that trust, that goes a long ways, because then they tell people, and then they tell people, and it becomes a word of mouth thing where it becomes a highly valued product, rather than just a fly by night trendy product where it's like, well, this is going to get me stoned. It's cheap. I'll get it now, and next week I'll buy something else.
Right. How do you, I'm thinking about our audience and performance.
Hi, audience.
Hello, audience.
What's going on, y'all?
Because I can speak I'll speak how I like to use it. I like sativas before jiu-jitsu. I like sativas before I work. And before I write, some sativa dominant strains, and some Pandora music or a movie soundtrack, and I'm set to go. I can write and compose and work really focused for a long period of time. I've seen lots of marijuana. Cannabis has been popular with like the sort of combat sports universe for a very long time, because you're using all the different parts of your brain and your body to solve these problems especially in like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Can you tell me a little bit about either how you like to use it for performance, or how some other people that you might know like to use it for performance?
Well, first of all, what do you use when you float?
I have gone through phases where a little tiny bit goes a long way. I like to solve problems in flotation tanks. And so when I float, I like to smoke a sativa so that my brain is active and I can still meditate. I've done, heavy edibles and gone for long periods of floating. But currently it's all vape, what do I have for me? I think I've got, what is this? I think it says it on there. I think I've got Maui Wowie. I think I've got some Maui Wowie Wam Oil, and I'll do like 2 hits, maybe 3 hits right before I jump into the float tank. And that's perfect for me.
Yeah. It definitely can enhance your experience in so many different ways. And before I answer the question, I want to touch on something. It's the whole plant product that really, gets you moving, that affects all of the receptors in your brain. And here's why. There's a very popular product on the market called a distillate. It's a form of extraction. It's basically building a higher THC level to where you get something in the 90s of THC, but they strip all the other cannabinoids out of the product, and then they'll reintroduce usually some food grade cannabinoids or some flavoring, right? And it's a huge misnomer because THC only attaches to a certain amount of your receptors, right? Your endocannabinoid receptors in your brain and body. The other cannabinoids attach to other cannabinoid receptors as well. When you've got CBN, CBG, CBC, CBD, they give you a much fuller, much broader experience because you're getting the whole plant, right? So distillate is hugely popular over what we do, which is a full spectrum oil. But you want that full spectrum because that's where you get the terpenes, the flavonoids, and the cannabinoids augmenting the THC and really, really getting your receptors going. That's why when you smoke bud at your buddy's house, you're like, man, I'm fucking ripped, bro. I just, how much THC is in that? 12%? Wow, dude, what the heck? I just had a distillate yesterday with 93% THC, and I'm not as high as I am now. I wasn't as high as I'm now. Why is that? Because you're using the whole plant, right? So when you're going to a combat sport, hey, man, you want the whole plant, baby. You're going to have a fuller experience. And so that's what I use, man. I'm a hiking enthusiast. I also like going to the gym and working out or playing basketball. I'm also a writer. So yeah, certain strains will definitely affect my mood and my ability to perform. For like my favorite strain is Green Queen. It's a cross between Green Crack and Space Queen. I like to say that the Green Crack gets you up the mountain, and then the Space Queen makes you want to write a poem at the top. So the Space Queen is really good for, really creative cannabinoids, and the Green Queen is really active, or the Green Crack's really active, It's if I'm like going to do karaoke with my girlfriend and some friends and stuff, I like to use the Hindu Kush because it's got a nice euphoric sense that you get from it, right? Sort of a happy, relaxed, it's an indica, and I'll feel, the anxiety just melt away, and I'll go up there and I'll rip out a couple tunes like I'm Mick Jagger, brother.
Do you have different times of day? Are you a day smoker, user, consumer?
Well, not when I'm working. So only, when the business is finished, unless I'm obviously at a cannabis event or something like that. But, rarely do I smoke during the day if I have to work. Now, on the weekends, man, I absolutely love going up to the mountain, taking some tokes and getting on the hill snowboarding. I'll smoke all day, But, as far as doing business, I feel like I really need to have here's the thing. Cannabis can make you think differently, and it can make you think you're funny sometimes when you're not necessarily because you're stoned.
Right.
Or
we've all been there.
You can make you think you're witty, which you are, but to some people you might be a little too witty, a little too talkative, and maybe on the verge of annoying. So you got to be careful about that. It's for doing business. I personally think it's best to keep a straight head. Now, other people I know smoke all day, every day, edibles, you name it, and they function perfectly well.
Everybody's different. Everybody responds.
Yeah, man.
Everybody responds.
And cannabis affects everybody differently.
Well, I know that you're making extra time for me today. I for sure, at least. I mean, I think we need to revisit this because there's some other rabbit holes I want to go down with you.
I'd love to, brother.
Yeah, I think we need to have a round 2 here soon. But
Sure.
I like to close out each episode with another question, and you mentioned it briefly there. You are a writer, you are a novelist, of prolific proportion, and you've seen a lot, and you've been in showbiz and radio, and now in cannabis, and I think of you not only as a friend but as a very interesting person, and I would love to hear how you would finish this sentence. Everyone should know that.
Oh, that's it, huh? That you can be happy. Now, let me expound on the writing part, so people don't start going looking for my books on Amazon. I've written 5 books. A couple of them are novels. There's a self-help book. The novels, As the Romans Do is one. Another one's called Firefly. I have a self-help book called 13 Girlfriends and No Ring. I also have a book of essays called Tattooed Dude. However, none of them are published. I'm about to embark on my writing career, like I told you before, with the Leaf magazines, with the column called Stony Baloney. Now, I've got 25 entries written. Once we get to probably 60 entries, we'll publish a book called Stony Baloney, and I'll build my reader base through that. And then eventually I'll start releasing my other works. So the novels you're probably not going to get for another 3 years or so.
All right.
Oh, but you get a manuscript.
Sweet. I get advance copies?
You can have a manuscript.
Oh,
yeah. I'll send you a copy of Firefly, bro. You'll love it.
Cool. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today on the Optimal Performance Podcast. This has been a deep dive, and not deep enough, but I think that people are really going to be interested in the details that we went into today, and the insight that whether you're in Washington or California or Boston or Shanghai, you're the principles are the same, and the suggestions that you've made, I think, are really going to help people.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And if you're interested in my product, please go to wamoil.com. It's WAMOIL.com. And hey, man, look me up on Instagram. It's Ricker DJ.
Thanks, Ricker.
Sean, it's been a pleasure, brother. It's always great speaking with you, and it sounds like you've got a really forward-thinking audience, and this has truly been an honor and a privilege, and I thank you so deeply for this experience.